Mo Xiaotian, chatting happily with Su Bei, blinked and asked, "Wait, do you want me to leave now?" "Yep, seems like you're not wanted here," Wu Mingbai replied, all cheery but with a bite of sarcasm. Without hesitation, Jiang Tianming gave him a light smack on the head and said, "Ignore him. You don't need to leave. Su Bei, can you step outside with us?" Eager to escape from Mo Xiaotian's never-ending chatter, Su Bei quickly jumped up, eyebrow raised, ready to go. Deep down, he regretted ever being kind to Mo Xiaotian. Sure, Mo Xiaotian was like a little sunshine, but everyone knew such characters in manga usually had two big traits: being clueless about when to leave and talking non-stop. How does something as simple as "there's a new rose on Si Zhaohua's desk every class" end up being a 10-minute monologue? Su Bei was done with it. The group made their way out of the classroom and onto the playground. Though the place was dotted with students, it still felt wide open and empty. They found a quiet corner with some exercise equipment. Jiang Tianming and Wu Mingbai settled on the sit-up machine while Su Bei easily flipped onto the horizontal bar, swinging his legs. "So, what do you want to talk about?" he asked. Jiang Tianming cut to the chase, his voice sharp. "Do you know who the culprit is?" Su Bei blinked, caught off guard by the bluntness of the question. He raised an eyebrow, intrigued by Jiang Tianming's directness. Realizing his approach might be a bit too abrupt, Jiang Tianming quickly added, "I just need some certainty." Su Bei understood the need for clarity if he knew they could trade information, securing their safety net. Even someone as composed as Jiang Tianming couldn't help but show a hint of anxiety when his companion's safety was at stake. Unfortunately, Su Bei didn't have the answers. "I don't know," he replied truthfully, not needing to hide anything. Whether Jiang Tianming overanalyzed his response wasn't something Su Bei cared about. It was a reasonable answer after all. Jiang Tianming, though, didn't seem disappointed. Instead, he extended an invitation. "Want to join me in the investigation? It's more fun when you're in the thick of it." His reasoning was simple based on Su Bei's past behavior. It seemed he had no ill intentions in this matter. He wouldn't have brought up targeting Sun's parents' company if it weren't for the timing, would he? With this in mind, bringing in Su Bei, someone truly skilled, to join their team seemed like the perfect move to track down the culprit. "Yes! Yes!" The voice of manga awareness suddenly chimed in, excited to see Su Bei step into the main action and steer the plot forward. But, to everyone's surprise, Su Bei turned them down, saying, if a spectator joins the stage, they become part of the play. That would be boring. As he spoke, his brow furrowed, his deep purple eyes unreadable, an air of exhaustion creeping into his gaze, replacing the earlier enthusiasm with a cold detachment. Jiang Tianming wasn't shocked by the rejection, but the strange flicker of emotion in Su Bei's expression caught him off guard. What was that about? Did his invitation really trouble Su Bei so much? But as quickly as it had appeared, the fleeting expression vanished, and Su Bei returned to his usual smile. "Once you find the culprit, make sure you attend class properly. I don't want my teammates dragging me down in the monthly exams." After dropping his last words, he seemed to lose all interest, lazily waving his hand and walking away. Watching him leave, Jiang Tianming blinked. After finding the culprit, was he that sure they'd track down the criminal? Meanwhile, the manga awareness voice buzzed incessantly in Su Bei's ear. "Why'd you turn him down? Weren't you always itching to get close to the main characters? This is the perfect chance, and the protagonist himself invited you." Annoyed by the relentless questioning, Su Bei shot back. "What's your rush?" The voice instantly fell silent. Was it guilty? Su Bei smirked. "It's only been 2 weeks since school started. Even if I joined the main group, there's no way we could start solving any power issues yet, so why the hurry?" "Why do you want me to join the main character so badly?" Su Bei asked, raising an eyebrow. "I just thought you'd get more screen time, which would make it easier to mislead the readers," explained the manga awareness. Su Bei wasn't convinced. "You know my goal is to mislead the readers, right? I only need to appear at key moments to display my power. The more I talk, the more mistakes I might make. If I get more screen time, it'd be easier to raise suspicion. You didn't overlook that, did you?" After a long pause, Su Bei's gaze turned cold and serious. "Let's be honest. We're in a partnership. If you want me to stay on track, stop trying to deceive me." The manga awareness sighed, admitting, "All right, I do have selfish reasons. I hoped you'd form more bonds with the main characters, so your desire to save the world becomes stronger." Since Su Bei's revival, the manga awareness had never sensed a deep desire to save the world in him. Su Bei was using the story to enhance his power, but part of the manga awareness feared that once Su Bei escaped his destined death, he'd stop caring about the world altogether. Su Bei, always unpredictable, throws a curveball when he casually asks, "What if I kidnapped Jiang Tianming and the gang and took them to the North Pole?" The manga awareness reacts with confusion. Struggling to keep up with the sudden change in direction. Trying to calm the situation, it urges Subi not to mess with the plot. But Subi, all innocent curiosity, wonders aloud if the manga would switch protagonists or focus on the group's icy adventures. His innocent demeanor hides the depth of his thoughts. What if this could rewrite the very story? The manga awareness, skeptical but calm, reassures him that no matter what, the plot would snap back to its usual course. Even if Subi tried to derail it, the story would always find its way back, and he'd fail in his attempt. Subi gave a thoughtful nod, a smirk tugging at his lips. No worries, I'm not planning anything big. Relax. But his mind was racing. Joining the main group meant diving into the heart of the story, a move that would entangle him in its twists. With his focus on fate, the plot's pull was inevitable. If he stayed as an observer, he could maintain his distance, his thoughts intact. But crossing into the main group would shift everything, pushing him off the rails. Could this be the work of the manga awareness? No, it wouldn't trick him so easily, especially not with the truth it had shared. Subi speculated. The awareness wasn't trying to manipulate him, just playing into the world's interests without realizing it. Much like before, when it slipped, apologized, and unknowingly pushed him, driven by nothing more than subconscious forces. For Subi, this discovery was far from a good sign. If the manga awareness had carried malice, it would have been easy to spot, like a dark dot on a blank sheet of paper. But it didn't. It was simply swayed by its subconscious, unaware that its actions were off track. It even thought it was doing what was best for him. Such unintentional manipulation wouldn't trigger his radar, so he had to rely on his own instincts. But it wasn't all bad news. The manga awareness still harbored goodwill towards Subi, which was a positive sign. They were now in a cooperative dynamic, and if their intentions started clashing, that would spell trouble. Since the manga awareness was being influenced by external forces, the key was to prevent that influence from affecting him. With that in mind, Subi steadied his thoughts and firmly declared, "I will not join the protagonist group." Is it because you don't want too much interaction with them? The manga awareness asked, worried. It feared its hunch was right that Subi was planning to abandon his allies once the crisis passed, ignoring the world afterward. According to the story, the world's destruction would take at least 10 years, which meant Subi could live another decade without losses, even if he didn't save the world. Hearing the concern of the manga awareness, Subi explained, "It's not that I don't want to interact with the protagonist group. I just don't want to be hated by the readers." The idea of being disliked terrified him more than anything. He wasn't interested in being adored, but he couldn't afford to fall into the pit of being hated. Subi spent his fair share of time browsing forums, so he knew how the readers worked. For characters they loved, they'd analyze every little move, searching for hidden meanings. Characters that didn't spark much emotion but were relevant to the plot would get a fair shake, dissected with logic. But characters they hated? Oh, they didn't need analyzing. They were just destined to be cursed. A mysterious character? Pretentious. Helping the protagonist? Clearly just a way to ride the wave of popularity. Powerful abilities? Forced power-ups that led nowhere. Characters that were disliked got no second chances. That wasn't the path Subi wanted to walk, so he made sure to avoid any situation where he could be despised by the readers. How could that make you hated? The manga awareness was puzzled. Not many people disliked Jiang Tianming and the others. After all, as the protagonists, they were always in the spotlight. Being on the side of righteousness usually made them hard to dislike, even if they weren't everyone's favorite. Subi chuckled lightly. Do you really think just joining the protagonist group guarantees acceptance? Isn't that how it works? Let's make a bet. With the Sun Ming incident, one of the new characters will definitely join the protagonist group. After it's over, we'll check the forum's reaction. If no one has any negative comments, I'll join the protagonist group in the next event. If there are negative comments, you'll stop giving me suggestions. Though Subi was clearly bluffing, manga awareness caught on quickly. That's not fair. You have too much of an advantage. Even Jiang Tianming has people who dislike him. If any new character gets negative comments, you'll win right away. Subi wasn't bothered at all when his little plot was uncovered. He simply rubbed his nose and said, "All right, let's change it up. How many characters are planning to join the protagonist group this time? 2? How did you know?" The manga awareness asked, surprised. Subi just grinned and replied, "If these 2 characters together are disliked by over 10% of the forum, I win." 10% was no small number, and if that many people disliked them, the manga awareness would have to admit it misunderstood the readers. Fine, it agreed, but you can't start a thread to sway opinions. With that settled, Subi casually strolled back to class, continuing, "Besides, there's another reason I can't go with them to investigate the case." The manga awareness was puzzled again. Why not? Are you bad at investigating? I thought your father trained you for this. Subii sighed. I've already seen the murderer. The manga awareness finally made the connection. Subii couldn't go with them. He'd come face to face with the murderer, even if only through a mask. And now the killer might target him if they realized he was hunting them down too. Subii's death had been part of the original fate, and while that thread had been severed, if the murderer chose to strike again, the chances of Subii dying were nearly inevitable. After settling this, Subii, curious about his progress, asked when his abilities would change. Flipping his palm, he conjured a simple gear. It had been 3 days since the manga's first release, yet no change had occurred. The cycle might take longer or require other factors. The manga awareness explained that the next update of the manga would finalize the data. In the real world, updates were weekly, but in the manga world, timing was unpredictable. Subii wondered if every chapter had the same length. More or less, came the reply. So, unless something unexpected happened, the next chapter would likely begin after the Sun Ming incident concluded. In just a single day, everything flips upside down. From the grand opening ceremony to the chaos in class, a whirlwind of events unfolds. Races, run-ins in the infirmary, and tense confrontations with a handful of students. But the kicker? A murder discovered in the cafeteria that leaves everyone in shock. The author doesn't waste a moment, cramming plot twists and character building into every page. No fluff to be seen. Subii, the ultimate strategist, isn't phased. He knows the chapter will wrap once the murder mystery's solved, but what matters most is whether he can control how things play out. His prediction skills have already gotten him some unwelcome attention, but there's no turning back. No, he has to be involved in this, even if only to make sure readers understand his foresight is more than just luck. He's far from a typical student, with sharp intellect and quick reflexes, but his lack of abilities leaves him stuck in Class F. Still, he's managing to make waves, leaving an impression on everyone even without the flashy powers his peers boast. Maybe, just maybe, Class F won't be his forever. Subei's plan was simplify under the radar, blend into the background of the class, and focus solely on learning. But life, and the manga world he finds himself in, had other ideas. His secret? He didn't just want to survive, he needed to manipulate the story's logic to survive the twists and turns ahead. So, with a calculated change of heart, he realized that to capture attention, especially that of his classmates and the manga readers, she needed to make an impression, especially with the protagonists. By doing so, he'd not only build an air of authority, but could potentially shape his abilities into something far more powerful. The next test? Physical training. And it was time for Subii to step up and lead the Runa task that carried its own challenges, balancing speed and class morale. His presence on the field? An exercise in strategy, where every action and decision was a calculated move to further entrench his growing mystique, all while staying one step ahead of the chaos that was beginning to unfold around him. Subii found himself caught in a tricky situation. Slow down, and he'd face Manhwa's wrath. Speed up, and he'd wear himself out. It was a lose-lose scenario. The task was usually handled by the stronger students, but the way it was presented today clearly singled out Subii. Glancing at Mutiran's empty seat, Subii wasn't surprised. The class monitor was off, assisting in another investigation his choice, naturally, to help his classmates, with Manhwa's blessing. With his physical enhancement abilities, the training drills were pointless for him, so skipping them to work on the case was a no-brainer. As for Mo Xiaotian from Class A, he had smoothly slid into the protagonist's group. That cheerful, sunny personality was a perfect fit for the manga world, and despite not being involved in the case, he found himself joining the main plot. Subii didn't care much to ask about it. He'd catch up with the details when reading the manga. Besides, staying silent meant he'd appear more knowledgeable later on. After leading the run for 10 laps and finishing a round of military drills, it was finally time for some downtime on the field. Just as Subii and Feng Lan were about to settle down, they spotted Wu Mingbai making his way over. His eyes were locked on Subii and Feng Lan, and without hesitation, he approached. "Subei, long time no see. Got a moment to predict something for me?" He was clearly fishing for a freebie. Subii raised an eyebrow lazily and smirked. "Better ask the guy next to me, he's the real prophet." Wu Mingbai turned his gaze to Feng Lan, knowing she had the prophecy ability. Though not in the same class, he had heard rumors and even thought of asking for her help. But Feng Lan had always seemed less approachable than Subii, who was more interested in the spectacle than actually getting involved. Still, now that Subii had pointed him to Feng Lan, Wu Mingbai decided to seize the moment. His eyes lit up with intrigue as he asked, "Really? You've got a prophecy ability?" Earlier in the cafeteria, Subii asked Feng Lan about his ability to predict the future. Feng Lan, having exhausted his specific prediction quota for the month, warned that anything beyond that would be a random guess, offering no real help. As expected, Feng Lan shook his head slowly. aware of the dangerous activities Wu Mingbai and his group had been involved in recently. Wu Mingbai, with a hint of disappointment, asked if there was any price they could pay for Feng Lan's help. Despite the tension, Feng Lan firmly declined, explaining that he couldn't make any more predictions until next month, and even then, getting him to make a prophecy wouldn't be easy. The scene was charged with the tension of unspoken secrets, as both Feng Lan and Su, despite sharing similar abilities, gave off drastically different vibes. Feng Lan was the mysterious, guarded seer, while Su Bei seemed more like a fortune teller, ready to spin tales of destiny under a bridge. Wu Mingbai's curiosity was piqued by the mention of a prophecy. "So, how do I get you to help me with a prophecy next month?" he asked, eager for an answer. Su Bei, equally intrigued, glanced over, aware that obtaining a prophecy from Feng Lan usually required offering enough entertainment. What would be the cost of getting one from him, though? Feng Lan responded casually, "It's very expensive," not in a bragging way, but simply stating a fact. He paused for a moment, clearly hesitating to reveal more. It was clear that while benefiting his family could sway Feng Lan to give a prophecy, there was another way, but what it was remained a mystery. Wu Mingbai, sharp as ever, quickly noticed the gap in information. "But if you don't clarify the other method, what if someone unwittingly meets it?" he pressed. Feng Lan's answer was simple. "In that case, I'll give them a prophecy voluntarily." Wu Mingbai nodded thoughtfully, then, with a polite farewell, he turned and left. Su Bei, meanwhile, watched Feng Lan as he quietly pulled out a book and began reading. Lost in thought, Su Bei remained silent, lost in thought as he observed Feng Lan, who remained calm and absorbed in his reading, unaffected by his gaze. Su Bei didn't ask any questions. After all, he had his own secrets who, was he to expect others to share theirs? As the bell rang, signaling the end of class, they both left the room as if nothing had occurred. Sitting back in his seat, Su Bei replayed the moment in his mind. If Feng Lan refused to disclose the alternative method, it suggested he wanted the condition to be met naturally, without forcing it. What kind of condition could that be? Something that, if pursued deliberately, would yield less success, yet would be fulfilled effortlessly by the protagonist group. It was clear that, in the future, the group would unknowingly meet this condition and receive Feng Lan's help. Could it be about becoming his friend? Or helping him in some way? But Su Bei knew better than to think they'd already reached that stage. Despite walking together often, they were far from friends at best. They were just companions for meals. Making friends? Now that was another matter entirely. Su Bei isn't the type to make friends. At the Ability Academy, his connections with people like Jiang Tianming, Lan Subing, and Feng Lan are driven by interest, not emotion. He believes that those with hidden agendas aren't worth trusting. The time he spends outside the main events of the story flies by, and by the second week of school, he finds himself in the Academy's massive library, searching for books on destiny. Su Bei has recently discovered that destiny and prophecy abilities are linked, with destiny being a broader concept. But bigger scope doesn't always mean more power. Just like with summoning, the strength of abilities varies. The library houses a book called The Little Thing About Abilities Destiny, which lists several known destiny abilities, like the intriguing Falling. Su Bei's ability to manipulate destiny causes him to fall in line with a unique set of powers. He's aiming for something bigger though, something that could rival even Feng Lan's powerful abilities. But here's the kicker, he's still pretty new to all of this. Sure, he's had 15 years of life under his belt, but when it comes to understanding abilities, he's barely scratched the surface. His current abilities? Surface level tricks that wouldn't hold up for long when everyone else starts getting serious. And let's face it, staying in the shallow end is a recipe for exposure when things get real. He's not exactly thrilled with his situation, especially since he planned to just coast through school, but it looks like he's been dragged into something way messier. All because of a mysterious author and an even more mysterious murderer. The hunt for the murderer is on, and Su Bei and his classmates are desperately trying to create clues with their abilities. They don't have solid evidence yet, but they're not giving up just yet. The clock's ticking, and the game is far from over. Their investigation had zeroed in on the cafeteria staff, narrowing the list of suspects to the chefs, cleaners, and other personnel. Brother Bry, we're going to keep an eye on the cafeteria crew now. Catch you later. Mo Xiaotian, eyes sparkling with excitement, quickly waved goodbye to Su Bei as he dashed off with Jiang Tianming and the others. For a typical 15-year-old, diving into an investigation was thrilling. No wonder he was so eager. Mo Xiaotian had shared everything with Su Bei, not because he was careless, but because Jiang Tianming suggested helping Su Bei stay in the loop, while also hoping he'd offer some extra clues. After they left, Su Bei calculated their route and guessed they had reached the cafeteria by now. Pulling out his phone, he shot Jiang Tianming a quick message. "Don't forget the tips I gave you earlier. If you don't use them, I'll be disappointed." The message was read quickly, but there was no reply. At the cafeteria entrance, Jiang Tianming switched off his phone, prompting a puzzled Wu Mingbai to ask, "Who messaged you?" With a casual shake of his phone, Jiang Tianming replied, "Subi!" He reminded us not to forget the hint he gave. Wu Mingbai quickly pieced it together. The purple-red smoke? Is that the clue to finding the killer? Listening in, Lan Subing suggested a more intriguing possibility. What if he's already figured out who the murderer is? Jiang Tianming nodded, a sense of relief washing over him. With a clear lead from Su Bei, the pressure of facing a murderer in the cafeteria felt less daunting. But as the weight of the situation sank in, Jiang Tianming realized something critical. Relying on others could lead them into deeper danger. If they were to truly solve the mystery, they couldn't let their guard down. Trusting others too much could be their undoing. Mo Xiaoxian, happily chatting away with Su Bei, blinked and asked, "Huh? You want me to leave now?" "Yep. It seems you're not exactly welcome," Wu Mingbai replied with a grin, his words dripping with sarcasm. Without hesitation, Jiang Tianming gave him a playful smack on the head, shaking his own. "Ignore him. No, you don't need to leave. Su Bei, can you come out with us for a sec?" Grateful for the escape, Su Bei quickly sprang up, raising an eyebrow. "Let's go!" Deep down, he regretted ever being kind to Mo Xiaotian that day. As much as Mo Xiaotian was a little sunshine, he couldn't help but feel like a trapped audience to his endless chatter. He still couldn't fathom how a simple comment about roses on Si Xiaohua's desk turned into 10 minutes of non-stop rambling. Enough was enough! The group left the classroom and wandered to the playground, which, despite being scattered with students, felt eerily empty. They found a quiet corner with some exercise equipment. Jiang Tianming and Wu Mingbai plopped onto the sit-up machine, while Su Bei casually flipped onto the horizontal bar, swinging his legs. "So, what's on your mind?" he asked, eager to get to the point. In a world where destiny can be manipulated like gears, Su Bei's cunning knows no bounds. As the members of Class F rise through the ranks, their mysterious powers and Su Bei's increasingly prophetic predictions attract dangerous attention. Everyone seems to be questioning whether he's a secret villain or something more. Behind his facade, Su Bei weaves an intricate web of illusions and subtle manipulations, leaving his classmates in the dark about his true intentions. Tensions flare as a rogue upperclassman launches a surprise attack on Class F, pushing Su Bei to reveal his strategic prowess. But beneath the surface, something darker is at play, strange symbols, a killer lurking in the shadows, and a manga world that's slowly coming apart. The story is no longer under his control, and as the pages of fate continue to turn, Su Bei realizes that the plot itself may be shifting in ways he never expected. Could he be the architect of his own downfall, or is something far more sinister at work? The gears of destiny are turning, but who's really pulling the strings? Their investigation had zeroed in on the cafeteria staff, narrowing the list of suspects to the chefs, cleaners, and other personnel. "Brother B, we're gonna keep an eye on the cafeteria crew now. Catch you later." Mo Xiaotian, eyes sparkling with excitement, quickly waved goodbye to Su Bei as he dashed off with Jiang Tianming and the others. For a typical 15-year-old, diving into an investigation was thrilling. No wonder he was so eager. Mo Xiaotian had shared everything with Su Bei, not because he was careless, but because Jiang Tianming suggested helping Su Bei stay in the loop, while also hoping he'd offer some extra clues. After they left, Su Bei calculated their route and guessed they had reached the cafeteria by now. Pulling out his phone, he shot Jiang Tianming a quick message. "Don't forget the tips I gave you earlier. If you don't use them, I'll be disappointed." The message was read quickly, but there was no reply. The cafeteria was packed with staff members who had worked that day, each wearing a grim expression. No one could take lightly being pulled into a murder investigation as a suspect. The Endless Ability Academy, known for training future ability users, didn't brush this off. Unlike ordinary schools, the administration supported the students in their efforts to find the killer, recognizing that such dangers were part of the territory for those training to face nightmare beasts. As the staff members nervously sat, Jiang Tianming began scanning the room, asking everyone to recount their whereabouts between 4 and 5 p.m. The tension was thick. Could they solve this on their own, or was there something darker at play? The moment the victim was stabbed in the back, everything changed, no chance for delay. Death was instant. Mutiran calmly noted, "If someone's story doesn't line up, others can call them out when they're done." The mechanical voice of Lan Subing's phone chimed in. "Anyone with valid evidence will receive a 5,000 yuan reward." Despite her crippling social anxiety, Lan Subing had found a way to communicate through her phone during the investigation, though it didn't help much with her ability. But the reward? That sparked excitement in the group. Resentment faded as people began sharing their timeline. When a male chef stepped up, Jiang Tianming froze upon meeting his gaze. In that moment, he almost lost control, but quickly regained composure. Once the chef finished his account, followed by two others, Jiang Tianming spoke, "Let's take a break and discuss the info we've gathered." The cafeteria staff thought he was being considerate, but in truth, this break, it was a moment for something deeper to unfold. As they walked out of the cafeteria, none of them seemed too concerned. They were just suspects, after all, not actual criminals. However, Jiang Tianming's behavior immediately caught their attention. His face was serious as he spoke, revealing a detail no one had noticed before. One of the chefs had eyes that matched exactly the color Su Bei mentioned. The others froze. It was a huge revelation that Lan Subing and Wu Mingbai had missed entirely. Jiang Tianming's keen eyes had caught something subtle, something linked to the purplish-red smoke Su Bei had conjured with his ability. Wu Mingbai, ever trusting of his friend's instincts, nodded in agreement. None of the others had eyes like that. Lan Subing, piecing together the puzzle for the first time, started to understand the hint that had eluded her. But just as they were starting to connect the dots, Mo Xiaotian could no longer stay silent. He'd held his questions back, knowing Jiang Tianming had already been asked earlier, but now he couldn't help himself. "What hint are you all talking about? You can't still be keeping it a secret, right?" Jiang Tianming asked, already knowing the answer. "The clue we've got, it's got to point to the killer's identity. That purple-red smoke, it's the same color as the chef's eyes." Su Bei had dropped hints, but they weren't clear about the killer. Yet, with everything lining up, it was only logical. The killer was tied to those clues. No other explanation would make sense. "From Bibro?" Mo Xiaotian's eyes sparkled, then he snorted, amused. "He's so unfair, didn't tell me his ability was this epic. I'm definitely going to sulk at him later." Despite the playful tone, it was clear he wasn't angry. It was the kind of joy you feel for a friend who's leveling up, not just power-wise, but in life. In their world, a weak ability wasn't just a disadvantage, it was a straight-up death sentence. Everyone, strong or not, attracted Nightmare Beast's attacks. There was no safe place, only personal strength that could guarantee survival. The moment Manhwa spoke, the group realized the killer's abilities were limited. He could no longer harm anyone, and with the building sealed, finding him outside would be a walk in the park. Without a second thought, the group rushed out of the cafeteria. Meanwhile, Su Bei, leaving the library on his own, sensed something strange. The path he walked had become eerily silent, devoid of students, unlike usual. He paused, wondering what had happened. Was the school suddenly caught up in some chaos, or had he just missed something crucial? Something was definitely off, but Su Bei wasn't sure what yet. As the purple-red haze swirled, it wasn't just a visual spectacle, it seemed to have a deeper meaning. What could smoke represent? Jiang Tianming pondered, the thought lingering in his mind. "Smoking?" he muttered. Wu Mingbai, still grappling with the connection between the smoke and the color, tossed in, "A fire?" Mo Xiaoshan, however, with a flick of his hand, broke the haze of confusion. Isn't anyone thinking it could be an ability? The idea hit everyone like a spark. They hadn't considered it before, but now it seemed the most likely possibility. After all, the Endless Ability Academy was full of ability users, most of whom had weak powers, hiding their true abilities due to the threat of nightmare beasts. But this killer, this elusive figure, maybe it was someone using their ability in the shadow. Jiang Tianming acted fast, saying, "I'll ask the homeroom teacher about the ability testing machine. You all stay calm. Don't let anyone suspect anything." Jiang Tianming and Manhwa split up to investigate. Jiang Tianming quickly tracked down Manhwa and explained his plan, who, without suspicion, handed over a machine used to test students' abilities at the start of the term. Manhwa had already thought of one step further, considering that the school staff had no one above D class. Any potential suspect with high-level abilities, even if not the killer, might have ulterior motives. With the machine secured, Jiang Tianming rushed back to the cafeteria, bringing Manhwa along for safety. The killer might react violently if exposed, and Manghwa's presence could help. As they entered, all eyes turned toward them. When the machine was spotted, Wu Mingbai, who had been closely watching a prime suspect, noticed a slight change in the person's expression. However, the suspect quickly recovered, and Wu Mingbai almost missed it. The test went quickly with everyone's cooperation. In just half an hour, everyone had been tested, and no problem surfaced. Even the chef with purplish red eyes didn't possess any ability. Had they misjudged it all? Jiang Tianming couldn't shake off the doubt. Was the smoke really a clue about an ability, or was it something else entirely? If it wasn't the right guess, they'd hit another dead end. After all, Subei's clue had been so cryptic. Without locking eyes with the suspect, Jiang Tianming would never have caught on the purplish-red smoke was actually two clues in one. The color and the smoke. The color pointed to the killer's eye color. Who could have figured that out? The others looked equally grim. They had thought they were so close to the truth, only to be thrown off course at the final hurdle. Had they truly gotten it wrong? Since nothing unusual was detected, I'll head out, Manhwa said, packing away his equipment. He was ready to leave. He knew his role was minimal here, and as far as he was concerned, students needed to grow through challenges. If they could crack it on their own, even better. He'd step back as much as possible. Jiang Tianming hesitated, still unconvinced that their guess had been wrong. As doubt clouded his mind, Wu Mingbai's eyes suddenly gleamed with realization, and he leaned closer, whispering, "The detective's ability didn't work on the killer either." Jiang Tianming's mind clicked into place. Of course, the ability testing machine was designed to detect other abilities, essentially using one ability to test another. The detective had said he couldn't summon the victim's soul because of ability suppression, a restriction that kept abilities from working. If the killer could suppress the victim's abilities, surely they could do the same to themselves, rendering the machine useless. With this revelation, Jiang Tianming grew certain that the chef was their suspect. Now, with Manhwa right beside him, it was the perfect moment to expose the killer. "Teacher, is there any way to lift ability suppression?" he asked, knowing the suspect was likely already on to their suspicion. It was better to voice his concern openly than risk giving the killer time to prepare. Manhwa understood instantly. The atmosphere was tense as the detective revealed the victim's suppressed abilities. But before anyone could react, the chef with ominous purple-red eyes lunged forward like a predator, aiming to take Wu Mingbai hostage for an escape. His speed was unreal, leaving Wu Mingbai frozen, unable to react in time, especially with a first-year student's lack of experience against a high-level user. Yet, their homeroom teacher, Manhwa, wasn't just any ordinary instructor. With the precision of a seasoned fighter, he shot forward like a blur, positioning himself between Wu Mingbai and the attacker, ready to stop him. Manghwa's confidence was unmatched. He knew that no one below S-Class could escape his grasp, making him fearless even in the face of danger. Just as the killer neared Wu Mingbai, Manhwa was already there, reaching out to capture him. But the assassin had no intentions of being caught. With a swift shift, he transformed into smoke and vanished, slipping through Manghwa's fingers like vapor, leaving nothing but the threat of his next move. In a blink, he vanished into the air. "Runs pretty fast," Manhwa noted nonchalantly, as though the escape didn't faze him. He tucked his phone away, showing no sign of pursuing, and turned to the group who were frozen in stunned silence. With a frown, he addressed the students, arms crossed. "What are you all standing there for? Get moving! Find him!" Even Jiang Tianming, puzzled, asked, "How do we find him?" Wu Mingbai, equally confused, echoed, "Aren't you going to look for him, teacher?" Mu Tiren, the ever-responsible class monitor, raised a concerned eyebrow. "We need to find him? What if he hurts someone?" Meanwhile, Lan Subing was already typing away on her phone, then hit play with a focused look. "Where?" Mo Xiaotian, unable to stay silent, eagerly raised his hand. "Mission accepted. Detective game, now it's hide and seek." Lan Subing facepalmed, pulling his hand down to shush him. Only after everyone spoke did Manhwa unhurriedly say, "He can't hurt anyone. That ability won't last long and the buildings are sealed. Can you go find him now?" With that calm assurance, Manghwa's confidence revealed that the danger was contained. The killer could only roam around the open areas of the school, making him much easier to track. The group, determined, quickly left the cafeteria. Meanwhile, Subi, having just left the library, was making his way back to the dorm. He wasn't planning on joining the chaos in the cafeteria and was instead aiming for something simple to eat. The atmosphere felt eerily quiet, though when had this area become so deserted? Normally, this path was busy with students heading to the teaching building, but now, it was completely empty. What was going on? Something felt wrong. Subi instinctively pulled out his phone, only to find 2 urgent messages waiting for him. The library had been blocking the signal, which explained why he hadn't received them sooner. One was from the class group, the other from the grade group, both saying the same thing. A dangerous individual has appeared on campus. Stay indoors, do not go outside. Subi sighed, rolling his eyes as he turned back to the library where safety awaited. It was obvious the dangerous individual was the one hunting Sunday Ming, and with his past entanglement with the killer, venturing outside would be like handing himself over. Better to stay inside and keep his life intact. Just as his hand touched the library door, a cold shiver ran down his neck. Without a word, he felt the sharpness of a dagger pressed to that fatal spot. A voice, low and threatening, hissed from behind. "Stay still, move, and you're dead." The grip on his neck tightened as if ready to snap it at any moment. Subi sighed softly, giving in to the pressure. "Don't choke me. If you kill me, who's going to be your hostage?" The killer's grip eased just a bit, thinking Subi had no way out. After all, a high-level ability user like him was no match for someone at a lower level, and with his power, failure wasn't an option. Little did the killer know, this was the same student who'd thrown him over his shoulder not long ago. But Subi wasn't about to try that stunt again. Last time, the killer was caught off guard, and his manga-like sense had helped him take control. But now, as a hostage, the killer wouldn't drop his guard. Escape wasn't an option. So, Subi settled into the situation. His nonchalant demeanor confused the killer. "Aren't you scared?" he asked. "Scared? I'm terrified," Subi drawled, his voice oozing sarcasm. Truth was, he wasn't scared at all. His mind, once clouded with fury, had dissolved into indifference. This cursed K-Seed steered clear to save his own neck. Yet here he was, face to face with the killer. Fate had a cruel way of pulling the strings. And no matter what he did, death seemed inevitable. What was the point of trying? If he was destined to die, he'd drag this entire manga world down with him. Screw it live if he could, die if he couldn't, he'd played his part. Manga consciousness, coward, scared to utter a word, afraid of his outburst. "You!" The killer's voice faltered, but before another word could escape, footsteps rang out. His grip tightened, and with a forceful turn, Subi was pushed toward Jiang Tianming and the others. The killer's hoarse voice echoed in the air. "Stay where you are! One step closer, and I'll kill him!" The others, standing in stunned silence, exchanged uncertain glances. They weren't surprised that the killer had taken a hostage, but having it be Subi? That was unexpected. How did he get caught? One of them wondered. Didn't the teacher say no one would get hurt? Mutirin's brows furrowed as he mulled over the situation, his mind racing. Subei's eyebrow twitched ever so slightly, but he remained calm. "Don't know," Jiang Tianming said, watching Subei's composure. Oddly enough, Jiang wasn't as worried as he should be. If anyone could handle this, it was Subi. The guy had always acted like he knew more than he let on. If he went down easily now, that would be strange. Jiang couldn't help but ask, "Subi, do you have a way to save yourself?" A moment of silence passed before Subi spoke, his voice steady. "I do, but this is your stage." He wasn't about to help even if it meant his own life was at stake. But the truth was, they didn't need his help. Subi kept his cool as the 5 talkative classmates subtly synced their move scarves twitching, fingers twisting, nerves coiled. The killer? Too arrogant to notice, blade pressing closer to Subei's neck, a wicked line blooming red. "No tricks! What's your way out?" he hissed. The team froze, startled, eyes flicking to Subi in alarm. Was this part of the plan, or the moment he got sliced? But Subi just sighed, voice low and calm. "If I can fool them, can I fool you?" His tone was tired. Like a magician annoyed the audience, ruined the trick too early. Which way could I go? I just wanted to calm their nerves. The killer didn't quite buy it, but couldn't think of what else to do. He warned him again before turning back to the group. "Let me leave the school, and I'll let him go." The 5 exchanged uneasy glances. Jiang Tianming spoke up. "Don't hurt him. Head to the school gate first, and we'll talk to the teachers." Reaching the gate meant the school could open the doors, and the killer could leave. He nodded, dragging Subi forward with swift steps. Thud! A sudden impact echoed. The killer's head seemed to hit something, and his grip on Subi loosened. Seizing the chance, Subi burst free, sprinting away with everything he had. The killer instinctively went after him, but stumbled over a block of earth that had mysteriously risen from the ground. The moment he tripped, the killer's chance to reclaim the hostage vanished. In the blink of an eye, a cage made of twisting vines erupted from the earth, sealing the assassin in place. But this wasn't the work of Jiang Tianming, or the other Sit was the school's unseen hand at play. With the danger neutralized, the air lightened, and Mo Xiaotian, grinning ear to ear, flashed a thumbs up at Subi, his eyes practically sparkling. "You were so fast, BEI, bro!" "Our teamwork is perfect." The signal from Mo Xiaotian's fingers had been Subei's cue to act, and it seemed the thing that had struck the killer was likely some hidden ability of his. Perfect teamwork with someone so goofy? Was that a compliment? Before Subi could unravel that, Wu Mingbai leaned in with a sharp look, curious. "So, did you really have a plan to escape?" The others' gazes followed suit, all wondering how Subi had pulled it off without their aid. Only Mutirin, with his heightened senses, remained unconvinced, having overheard Subei's muttered words to the killer. He knew Subi had simply aimed to calm everyone, and, sensing the pressure mounting, he was ready to cover for him. Subi had barely finished his dramatic plea when a sharp knock on his head cut him off. Manhwa appeared from nowhere, his hand retracting as he grumbled, "What are you yelling for?" He shot a glance at the group, his lips curling into a sly smile. "Good job!" Just as the tension hung in the air, a cold, detached voice echoed, "King of Abilities has updated. Please take note to watch." And with that, the gears of destiny began to turn once more, each tick bringing more danger, more intrigue, and more chaos into the ever-shifting world of Endless Ability Academy.